I have a fair bit of content on the channel about how to rip your physical media, your movies, off of Blu-ray discs, high definition and 4K Blu-ray discs to MKV files, play them over a local server to your Apple TV, your NVIDIA Shield Plex. And in my tutorials, I focus very specifically on the idea of retaining subtitles, but only the forced subtitles. And there's been some comments of late saying, why don't you just keep all the subtitles? Isn't that easier? And so I wanted to make a video about it because I found the perfect movie to illustrate this point. Why, in fact, trying to keep all of the subtitles in a movie is an endeavor that if I were ripping a lot of content very frequently, I wouldn't even want to touch it with a 10-foot pole because of all of the manual work and effort in tying things together that would be involved, both to keep the regular set of spoken subtitles, for me or your case, maybe English subtitles, in addition to having the forced subtitles be present in the final output file and play automatically when you need them. The best playback experience to me would involve still probably having the whole entire subtitle set for the movie, but having the ability to either turn that on and use it when I wanted to, but having the forced subtitles in the resulting MKV file, but always playing automatically. So if I just sit down, or anybody in the family just sits down and watches a movie and presses play, they're gonna get the right required mandatory forced subs without having to go into any menus or options or configurations, and they'll get the forced dialogue. But then if you wanted to be able to see the full gamut of subtitles, you could enable subs yourself and you would be able to get them. But it's not that easy. So let's take a look in practice here at the DC League of Super Pets in 4K Blu-ray and why this is such a pain point. All right, so here we go. I have inserted the 4K Blu-ray of DC League of Super Pets. I have used Make MKV to index the disc, read the contents of the disc. And let's take a look here and see what we have. We have one title, perfect, 51.1 gigabytes. We have a Dolby Atmos soundtrack. And if I was ripping this, I would turn off all this other audio. I would do my usual best practice of renaming this to be Dolby Atmos. But here we go. 2 English subtitle tracks. So what could be in there? Why are there 2? And why does this complicate wanting to keep both the regular English subs and the forced ones? Well, I'll show you right now. So what I would do here, my normal process, like I've shown in other videos, is I would go ahead and leave both English subtitles selected, including the forced box. That means that if a subtitle track has regular subs and forced subs in it, they would be included and separated, and you would get multiple tracks in the resulting output file, giving you the ability to inspect everything and really understand what's there. I would go ahead and do my rip with this stuff selected. All right, now note I am using a Mac. Mac doesn't really have good subtitle investigation management tools for doing MKVs and ripping discs, so I am running Windows 11 in a VM, giving me the ability to use the Subtitle Edit program. So here I've opened Subtitle Edit a couple times. I have two instances of it. And what we get basically out of DC League of Super Pets in the resulting MKV is 2 subtitle tracks. There's no forced subs technically in the subtitle tracks, otherwise we would have had more than 2. But what we get, the reality of what we get here, is that subtitle track 1 here we can see has 1,771 subtitles in it. It's in English, what they call an English SDH subtitle track, meaning it has the extra descriptive information, crypto barking, as well as the actual spoken words that go with the subtitles. The second track has 1 subtitle in it. It says "The Pig Without Hair is Crazy." This is a forced subtitle track. So not only do we have the complexity of, if you wanted to retain all of these subs, you have to pull these out separately, manage them, manipulate them, put them together, edit them, set the forced flag in order to basically kind of re-embed this subtitle and flag it correctly. It's a manual process that, again, you would have to use a tool, maybe an MKV tool next or something else. But in order to have all of these regular subs, in order to have the forced one play when you want the forced one to play, you would have to do that manually. You would not be able to just rip the main subtitle itself here, the 1771 entry. And if you just did that and you played that, The Pig Without Hair is Crazy would not play by default as a forced subtitle. It's not flagged. If it was flagged, we would have had 3 tracks in the resulting MKV, one that would have specifically been a forced track out of the one that had all of the subtitles in it. Plus, if you really wanted to be able to manage the subtitles for this movie, maybe you just wanted the English subs and you didn't want the descriptive information, well, prepare to do some work. This is where the actual Blu-ray standard matters so much, because the Blu-ray player, the encoding of the disc, the metadata, the details, the player knows what to show based on extra information and elements of being a licensed Blu-ray player. And you just don't get that when you rip this stuff out into MKV files. So what would I do here? Well, back in Make MKV, after ripping the disc and having the file with both subtitles in it, I would just reopen it and Make MKV. I would check off that full subtitle track. I would name the bottom one that I know contains only that one forced subtitle track, name it as forced, put the forced flag on it, and then boom, re-extract a new MKV from the MKV. And that one would have the video, the Dolby Atmos audio, and a subtitle track with one entry in it containing that one line of text. So some might argue, is that one line of text really that necessary to understanding the content of the movie, the story, anything like that? Well, no, but that's really not the point. The point is, if you really want to have the right content on your server, you want to rip your discs, and you want your playback to be precise and accurate and flawless, well, then you have to be able to take situations like this into consideration and know what to do. I find in general the process to be the process of ripping to be tedious and time consuming and have enough pain points altogether that I am not spending personally the extra time involved to do subtitle by subtitle, entry by entry, text manipulations and flagging in another tool in order to have all of that, come out completely, fully in the resulting MKV file. Now, of course, that does this idea of foregoing, eschewing the full stack of subtitles absolutely doesn't work for everybody. If you have hearing troubles, or you have other members of your family that have hearing problems and you need those subtitles, then obviously you would not want to follow this advice. But if you have that situation in your family group, in your friends group, or whatever, and you need those subs, be prepared. If you're going to do MKV files, you got extra work to do, and it's going to be a tedious and a time-consuming endeavor for a lot of movies. For some movies, many movies, whatever, it might not. You just pick the best case scenario. Of course, if there's no 4 subs, you don't have anything to worry about. In that case, pulling the whole good English track of subtitles out is a pretty easy endeavor, really, unto itself. But you still have situations like this where discs are mastered out in different ways. And sometimes you get the SDH information in addition to the regular text. Sometimes those are separated. Sometimes the forced is embedded. Sometimes the forced is both in the subtitle track, the whole one, and it's in its own. There is no rhyme or reason or consistency between discs for this type of stuff. I think, in my opinion, it's kind of a failure mode of the standard. But of course, they did make the Blu-ray standard worrying about how people were gonna rip their discs. But even still, from a standards perspective, I would just think you would want very, very consistent and accurate guidance and guidelines and instructions and requirements for how this stuff works. It would be laid out on a disc, and how a player would actually manage and process it. But that's not the case, and so we have situations like this. The other kind of saving grace to it as well is the idea that a lot of software nowadays, I'm not entirely sure if Plex does it, I know Infuse does it, so I can speak to that, players allow you to download like web-based subtitles. So they'll go out to some resources, some cloud-based, crowdsourced resources, and if you really need the regular subtitles, you don't necessarily have to have them in your MKV file. You can just enable them and enable basically cloud source subs, and you could still get access to those if you really needed them, but know, follow the process like this and know specifically that you're going to have the forced ones always there, always present, playing and properly attached to your media. That's probably something that I could do a separate video on. I think particularly with Infuse is maybe some more deep diving into the subtitle handling and showing off, like, you know, what capabilities exist out of Infuse and whatnot for cloud-based subs. I've never actually used it myself, but I am getting more and more to the point where, man, not having the full gamut of subtitles in a rip is actually beginning to be a detriment. I'm closer to 50 than 40. We're sitting here, we're watching TV, we're watching movies. There's plenty of times where my wife and I will look at each other and it's like, what did they say? No, well, let's rewind and turn the subtitles on, especially if we're watching a movie at night. It's the living room here. Kids are in bed. We're not in the theater. We can't crank it. So things are a little bit quieter and harder to hear. There's a lot of value, I do admit, in having the full stock of subtitles. And it for me personally, it becomes even more of a reason to just consider streaming it where I know the subtitles will be, and you have the awesome capabilities, for example, on an Apple TV with iTunes, to hit Siri and say, hey, what did they say? And you get like that 15-second, 12-second skip back. The subtitles are automatically turned on. They replay that piece of content, and then after those several seconds, the subtitles are automatically turned off. That feature, I don't know if Apple has that patented or what, that feature is genius. It is gold. You know, or of course, if you want to watch high quality content, use the disc, rip to ISO, or buy a Kaleidescape. So let me know what you think. If you've got some a better way of going about this than I've detailed here, if you've got some other thoughts, sound off in the comments. Please do all the regular YouTube stuff, like, subscribe, hit the bell for notification, leave those comments. Let's have a discussion. If this video helps you, hey, I encourage, use the super thanks, or look down in the description for some ways to support the channel, Amazon affiliate links, and all that stuff. Let me know what else you would like to see with regards to ripping physical media, playing back rips, handling MKV files, and all of that. And come on back for more home theater discussion and fun.